All right, in this video, I'm going to break down how to get an amazing sounding guitar, electric guitar, and acoustic guitar mix in Reaper. I'm only going to be using stock plugins for this video, so if you have a fresh install of Reaper, this is the video for you. I'm going to show you how to get guitars that are clear, yet are aggressive in a rock, hard rock, pop mix, and acoustic guitars that have a lot of clarity and body, but don't overpower the rest of the mix. So that's what we're going to go over in this video here. I have some free guides giving you some free gear and some free plugins and tools to help you with your recordings in your home studio. If you just go to the link below, you can get some Reaper templates as well as a bunch of free plugins to help you with your mixing and music production. Okay, let's dive into the video and I'll break down this electric guitar and acoustic guitar mix for this track. Okay, so I'm going to start off here by playing some of the mix so you can get an idea of what the electric guitar and acoustic guitar sounds are, and then we'll dive right into actually mixing the track. So here's what we got here. Let me solo some of the parts. Here's the electric guitars. There's two distortion tracks, one pan right, one pan left. They're kind of like a Marshall-y sound. And then I have some clean tracks that are playing some more chord parts here. They're more of like a Vox sound. Pretty clean. And then there's like a lead part that's a little more chorusy. So then there's also some acoustic guitars as well. One pan left, one pan right. You can hear them here. So the raw tracks all sound pretty solid. There's no, big problems with any of the tracks here. All the sounds are fairly good, but they're not mix ready. We got to get this all the guitar parts mix ready and present in the mix. So let's start with the electric guitars here. I'm going to solo them all as a whole. I think I'm going to apply most of the processing to this bus here. So I have all 5 guitars bus this electric guitar bus or folder in Reaper, process them all together. And if I feel like there's a track that needs its own separate processing, I'll go down and do that. But let's try and process everything as a whole. I'm a big fan of top-down mixing. I think it's a good approach to mixing and getting yourself started off on the right foot. So here's what we got guitar-wise. And just right off the bat, I'm going to come in with some Reaper stock EQ. That's always a good place to start. See what frequencies we can add and subtract that are going to make these guitars cut really well in the mix. The key with electric guitars really is adding the appropriate amount of mid-range. Electric guitar is a mid-range instrument. It's not a bass instrument. It's not really a top-end instrument. It can be in some cases. But really, the guitars are sitting in the mid-range in the context of this mix. And so I want to enhance what's good about it and take away what's not so good about it. So the first thing I always start off with the electric guitars is we don't need sub information. So I'm going to high pass everything above, or I should say everything below about 120 hertz. It's just sub information that doesn't need to be in the guitars. So I'm starting with a few cuts here. There's also some low mids that I'm not a big fan of, like some really boxy sounding stuff around 600. Let's take a Q and boost and see where I don't like the sound. That frequency doesn't sound good on any of the guitars, so I'm going to dip that by about 6 dB. You don't want to do too much of this to your guitars or you're going to take all the body out. For example, now they sound just way too thin, like they're recorded with like a 1x12 cab or something. So I'm taking out a few there. Another great tip is also low pass your guitars at the really high frequency mark. I'm talking about 16K. You can see it doesn't take away anything from the guitar. It just focuses the sound a little more and makes the whole thing sit in the mid-range a little bit better. So those are all the frequencies I was removing. Let's find something we do like. I really like that shelf at 5K. Let's find a little lower frequency. So if I take the EQ off, let's hear it in the context of the mix. We can hear the guitars are just a little more forward. We can hear them a little bit better. I'm going to add even more mid-range to it. Now, if solo, they might sound like, hey, these guitars sound a little too thin. But in a mix, guitars have much more upper mid-range presence and a lot less low end than people think. So that's a great place to start. I'm also going to add the Reaper saturation. I think this is great to throw on guitars. So it just adds a little bit of analog oomph to it. And a little bit of color to the guitar tracks as a whole. So if I take both plugins off, way more exciting, way more present, and just way more focused overall in the mix. Next thing I'm going to go with here actually is just a bit of reverb, but really I'm going to be very restrained, I would say, with the reverb. So if I find the reverb generator in Reaper, reverb is a good place to start. We're going to add our reverb generator here. Now, the thing with the guitars is to be very, very subtle with the reverb. It's just to sort of fill it out and add some color. If you have an ambient, guitar part, great, use reverb for that. But reverb really in this context is just to give the guitars a little bit of color, not wash them out. So for example, let's play it. That's not really doing much there, right? So let's mess with the room size a little bit and the length. I'm not really hearing a whole bunch yet. So let's add the wetness. Another interesting tool here is the pre-reverb tool. And this allows the initial signal to come through dry and then have a sort of reverb after effect. And it's a good way to keep your signal dry, keep the transients going. So that's just a really subtle reverb I'm adding at the end of the mix. Let's bypass all the plugins. Now let's say on this lead guitar, we wanted it to be a little more sparkly. So what we could do is come in with an EQ and give this lead even more top end to help it poke through the rest of the guitars in the mix. We can also hear that some of the notes on this lead is a little less played, I would say, as hard as some other ones. So we can come in with a compressor. Here's a Reaper stock compressor. Let's go sustain guitar solo preset. Let's see what that does to our sound. So we can do 5 dB of gain reduction, add some gain. So that's a little too much gain there. I'll dial that back. The compressor just helps keep that lead guitar up front and present. So all the changes we've made so far is this. Just so dark without the EQ and all the processing. Now it's up front and bright with the rest of the track. Let's move to the acoustic guitars now and see if we can get them to fit. Let's solo them again. Honestly, these sound pretty good and well recorded, but we do need to add some processing to them. So first off, I would say you need to figure out what the role of your acoustic guitar is going to play in your track. Is it a texture piece? Is it a main forward upfront thing? You need to make that determination before you apply their processing because it's going to change. For this track, the acoustics are sitting wide on the right and left. They're meant to add a texture. They're not really meant to be up front and have a ton of body. So what I'm going to do is solo the acoustics. And right now they sound pretty good, but I'm going to high pass at around 100 Hertz, similar to what I did with the electric guitars. We don't need all that low information. And then what I want to do is find a frequency that in the room, because this was recorded in a home studio, where it just wasn't really reverberating right, where it's hitting the walls and we're getting frequencies back that we don't like. I'm going to boost and find that. Yeah, it seems at about 300 Hertz. That's not a very nice frequency. Let's take that out. Already they sound a lot tighter. Let's add a top end boost. Let's give them some shimmer. I hear one more mid-range frequency that I'm going to search for. That's going to go, ooh, it's kind of got a woo sound going on. So I found a couple of frequencies I didn't like. You don't want to do this too much. You don't want to spend too much time filtering out frequencies. If you do too much, the instrument's going to sound weird. But doing it on a few frequencies that are just not very pleasing, I think is a great way to add some clarity to your instrument. And I added a top end boost and a shelf here in the mid range. Already, the acoustic guitars are going to have a ton more cut. Now, we do need compression because I record these with mics. It's dynamic. We need some compression on the acoustic. So let's go to a preset here in Reaper itself, acoustic guitar. Let's see what that sounds like. Maybe we can make some adjustments that are preferable. Before that, really quick though, I'm going to add the Reaper stock saturation. I love this at about 50%. Add some color to the acoustic. Now let's go to the compressor and see what it does. I'm not afraid to really compress acoustics quite a bit. Maybe I'm going to dial back the attack just a bit. I don't want it hitting the transients too hard, and up the release. There's one more frequency that I'm disliking, so I'm going to go and take it out. Right now with a ratio of 6:1, that works for me. Okay, let's play that in context of the track. Notice the acoustics there. They're sitting so well with the rest of the track. Let's bypass all the plugins I used. Solo. So overall, the mix has a ton more presence. We've got the guitar sitting nicely with the acoustics as a texture piece. So that is a breakdown of how to mix your guitars in Reaper. This was a rock, pop track, and I think it was a good representation of what Reaper can do just with stock plugins. So if you have a fresh install Reaper, go ahead, use your stock plugins. They sound amazing. You can get a great sounding mix with this. I also have other videos on how to mix vocals in Reaper using only Reaper stock plugins, and bass guitar in Reaper using only Reaper stock plugins. So go ahead and check those out there. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this. And anyways, I'll see you guys next time.